in Syracuse. But I think there has to be a balance. Now, even the president recognized it. He put the brakes on the Clean Air Act and said, let's take a step back. Let's look at all these regulators. Let's look at the cost of compliance. That's what's killing the businesses, the cost of compliance, the cost of trying to meet these standards, and then the standards being changed. So even the president has said, let's take a step back, let's do an analysis. The TRAIN Act is only meant to look at regulations in total to make sure that they're reasonable, they're not duplicative, and that they can be complied with. Thank you, sir.
On deck would be Mr. Johnston from Camillus and Sheila. You want to come up or you want to?
I'm fine here.
Mr.
As a school board president in one of our districts here, I think I comprehend your position on President Obama's job bill, but I would also like to know what other kind of support we as school districts can expect for our ability to retain teachers so we can continue to educate our students properly.
Thanks very much, and thank you for what you do for our kids. I have long said that I think it would be far better if the funds used for education were brought local. That the state, I think we do our kids and our teachers a huge disservice when we hand off how many billions and billions of dollars to Washington, to a huge bureaucracy, who then in their infinite goodness gives it back to the local districts. They don't know what's good for West Genesee. They don't know what's good for Westville. They don't know what's good for the city of Syracuse. You do. The people who run the school boards. It should be in your control. So when I say that, and when I say I think that the Department of Education has failed us, has failed our kids, I don't mean that I'm against public education, because that's one of the legitimate functions of our government, is public education. But I'm saying it should be local. It should be controlled by the state. It should be controlled by the local school boards. You know what's best for your school. Unfortunately, the president, in a bill, actually in 2010 was passed, same issue, being able to keep teachers and fund them. And so what the president did in a bill that was passed in Washington was that we would take X number of dollars, millions of dollars from food stamp program, and we would fund teachers. That's insanity. How many here in this room, the school taxes you pay, you should be able to, if you were able to keep that money local, the taxes that you would fund schools and keep teachers here and have some predictability. Every year school districts worry and are concerned about laying off teachers because of the uncertainty of what money they're going to get from Washington. So I am all for public education, but I think that really we got to wrestle that control from Washington and get it back here locally.
Joe Medicis will be on deck. Dr. Johnson from Camillus, are you going to be able to?
I am ready. Okay, I have some concern about numbers that you use regularly in our conversations at town halls, and I've seen you quoted in the media, and I'd like us to get some of these numbers clarified. One number, for example, you have said in the past, when you talk about the schools in Onondaga County, you've said that they have a graduation rate of only 50%. That's not correct. The average in Onondaga County is between 70 and 96%, for example, in Skaneateles. One school district has around 50%, but not the county. So you've been incorrect in that, and I wish that you would use the right statistic on that. Another number that concerns me is you keep on referring to the American Reinvestment and Recovery Act as being $1 trillion, when it's closer to $2.7 billion. Why do you think it's, why are you just rounding up by some $300 billion? Then I have another problem with another number you use. You said that Paul Ryan's idea of giving seniors vouchers to buy their own health insurance policy, somewhere in the realm of $11,000. Your health insurance is $15,000 a year, and we pay $10,000 of that, and you pay $5,000 of that, and your base salary is $174,000 a year. Where do you think seniors would get the money to pay for that kind of money if all that covers their health insurance is $11,000? I don't understand that number. And the final number that I would like to ask about is another number, which is 16 years that you've been receiving a salary and benefits from taxpayers. You've talked about smaller government, but you've been working all along taking your salary and your benefits from taxpayers' money. So I'd like to know when we will get all of these numbers actually out on the table and agree on what the facts are.
I think we just did. Just put all the numbers out there. The stimulus is the one I take exception with, and that is the stimulus was $787 billion. Now that money came borrowed. There's an awful lot of interest that gets to be paid, and when you factor in the interest that will be paid on that money, it is $1 trillion. I will check into the schools. I have said city schools. I mean that is where the problem is. The kids in the city schools. That's the graduation rate is 50%. But we will look into that. I appreciate that comment. The other two things are facts. I did work for Upstate Medical Center for 13 years. I'm proud of my service to them. I collected for the hospital. We collected money. The year I left, we collected $43 million for Upstate Medical Center through collections through insurance companies. So I well paid my salary. But I mean, I don't know what else to say. Those were my jobs. I'm proud of them. I did a good job. These are service jobs. Being an elected member of Congress is the highest honor that one could ever ask for. I am so honored to be your representative in Washington, and that's all I can say.
Time for one, maybe two more questions, so I won't put anybody on deck just yet, and then the Congresswoman will finish with a closing statement. But right now we have Joe Medicis. Joe?
Time for more.
We got time. I will read it for you, Joe. Thank you. Basically, Mr. Medicis is from the town of Onondaga, by the way, and he's talking about Warren Buffett, and his last question is, why not sack the IRS or replace them with a flat tax? Would you support both? Would you like me to do that? That's sufficient? Okay.
Joe brings up a big problem that we have in our nation, and that is a hideously complex tax code. And I know a lot of Americans and people in the town halls have been frustrated by the tax code, by the loopholes that are in the tax code. You know, many large corporations and wealthy Americans can afford the attorneys, can afford the accountants, and they can navigate through the loopholes where many cannot. So I think the answer to that, and I haven't endorsed either a flat code, flat tax, or a fair tax. I know a lot of people are in support of that. But what we can do, and it is in Paul Ryan and the Republican budget that was passed, is to reduce the rates, broaden the base, and simplify the code. And that should be a priority. That really should be a priority for this country. More people pay the taxes, and they'll pay more taxes because it'll be a fairer code. And I think that's I'm glad you brought that up. That's a very important issue that should be taken care of.
Ed McLaughlin from Syracuse. Ed, you want me to read it or you want to come up?
I just want to paraphrase. It was the president's putting this proposal out there to do the highways and bridges, all with, I would guess, with borrowed money. And my question to you is, in the past, in the commercial trucking industry, they paid fortunes for highway use tax, excise tax on tires, batteries, and everything else, plus all your fuel taxes, diesel. I just want to know if that tax fund is empty or gone someplace else, or does it still exist?
All within the economy, that's all.
I'll bet you know the answer.
I don't know.
Pay back Social Security.
Yes.